The somatic sessions were really cool because you got to be like really selfish with your feelings. You just got to focus on like, shit, this is how that thing made me feel. Like, this is how that period of going into a lot of fights. This is how my most recent breakup, like this is how these things like made me feel. And I don't have to communicate the context to anyone. Like you could, it was a safe enough space to, but like you didn't have to. You could just talk about the feeling and like really get to explore it in a way that I just don't think we are built to do in our normal kind of social day-to-day lives. Getting to actually observe and like call forth memories and call forth similar feelings of like when I've done that and be able to sit in those in a not easy context, but like a non-escalated, non-threatening, and non-like relationship conflict context made it really easy, or it made it easier to see some of those patterns and kind of identify ways to like break that mold a little bit going forward. I don't think I would have necessarily gotten to some of those places and had some of the realizations, or at least like walked away with the kind of comfort in holding those, had it not been for some of those somatic pieces. I've like worked a lot over the past year on just, like didn't like admitting it, but like recognizing of like, I'm not feeling all of my feelings, and I never have, and I haven't had a great precedent for that. And so I've done a lot of work, again, kind of thinking on like the cognitive side of how I get better at that. But the somatic work brought that stuff forward in a very, again, I hate to use the word effortless because it was hard. It was like impactful, but I didn't have to try to think through bringing up sad feelings from the past and like how to hold those things. It was very natural in that context. And so, yeah, I think it was a really key part for me in getting what I needed out of that, of just like probably still being backlogged in the emotional processing of some of these experiences, and having a place to call forth those experiences and the feelings associated with them, and like not just kind of chatting about it way, but like really getting to feel it again. And the only other time I'm feeling those feelings that strongly is like usually in some form of like conflict or distress or other thing like that. And that isn't the place where you can always spend a lot of time then thinking about how you want to like hold that better. So a lot of the somatic work was really good of bringing up that same level of intensity that we don't often have access to in like day to day, and then getting to spend like really dedicated time nurturing and caring for those feelings. And that to me was just really valuable, and I think really helpful in kind of my growth journey with feeling my feelings. I felt a lot of things during the retreat where I was like, whoa, this is like such a safe and inviting place to push on these limits of that comfort zone, and then like immediately re-regulate and like come back together and have lunch and chat. And that's so helpful for building this like confidence and capacity in yourself that like, I can get really sad and I can be okay. I can hold somebody else's like intense trauma or fear or pain, and then we can giggle together about it. Those are pathways, like neural pathways and just like behavioral patterns that like we don't see a lot. And the confidence from going through that to then come out and just being like, I'll have a hard day. Like, great. I had hard moments there. I had moments where I was pulling up some of those painful things in my life, and then I was smiling and laughing 10 minutes later. Like I feel strong and capable navigating some of like the emotional ups and downs in life. Just how much some of like my childhood wounds and like relationship with my parents and stuff was like, I really feel the weight of this in a way that I've like never been willing to give like that full level of credit for, and kind of give it some understanding and how it's impacted how I've moved through like relationships and the rest of my adult life, and start to just like connect dots between them. That childhood wound specifically, kind of how often I move forward in like fear of rejection and that type of stuff, and how often I really like downplay my needs. Yeah, I've definitely brought home some kind of little things and like little micro practices, as well as just kind of like general bigger perspectives, just in the way of like been showing up to conversations with people that might be a bit heavier or harder things in the past few weeks. I've just felt more capable of holding the emotional space in those ways, and at least the initial feedback seems to be that like that's really well received and people like that in a conversation partner. I had a really bad work day on Tuesday, and I was like so down on myself. And it was just one of those where like I had no reason to be. I had a great Monday, I had a great Wednesday, but Tuesday was bad. And I was just like, what am I doing? And I was able to like kind of feel all of that while also just kind of stepping back and being like, yeah, hold the space for that. Like, you are capable of like holding this like really self-judgmental feeling, and you'll be able to like explore it, move on from it, and like it won't go like wrecking your world. And that's just something I would have struggled with a lot more prior. And I think something that has like helped with that has been these like little micro things I've implemented. There was so much like eye contact while you were doing movement, or while we were talking about really hard things, or while crying or other stuff during the retreat, that like I really realized how valuable that was to me. And so doing things like spending a few minutes in the mirror, like just looking at myself and like seeing what comes up, has been a fun, daily, every other day practice. And then, there was at least that one day where like a lot of our movements were like based in hands and kind of representing different parts of ourselves with different hands. And I've definitely like carried that back too, of just like feeling my ability to like put these parts I feel about like my soul into like a physical space of these hands, and being able to move them and see them and have them hold each other and stuff like that. And that has been a very quick way for me to like call back that level of groundedness I felt during the retreat, and be able to kind of like pull some semblance of that home with me. I don't know where I would have stumbled upon those on my own, just in like day-to-day life. I've had big feelings before, but like the ability to work through them enough where you can like come up with like a little bookmark for them, that feels rare to me and like really valuable. I think the sessions were just the highlight. And I think for me, as time goes on, like any trip, like you forget some details and stuff, but I think I will just like remember the sessions, how they like felt to move through them, how much like time and thought went into those, and the depth of experience that was like had throughout all the different sessions. Yeah, I think just even the way they like all played together, and kind of built on each other and pulled similar themes was really fun to experience, and just like to kind of think about and witness and see pulled off. Be prepared for a deeper experience than you can probably imagine. The experience will have more layers to it than you expect. At least that was certainly true for me, and that made it more valuable than I was hoping for it to be. Don't be afraid to like open some stuff up ahead of time, play with some wounds, invoke some of these memories, bring the hard, heavy stuff to the retreat, and recognize that like it's a really good space for working on that. So like whatever the unseen problems in your life might be, whatever the things that are just kind of these nagging hard pieces, like I would be very surprised if people have access to those and they brought those with them to the retreat, that they wouldn't make some important progress in kind of the healing and holding of those things. And also the community piece was really cool. And don't underestimate just how nice it feels to spend a few days around people that probably have similar lived experience to you, and that you don't have to explain yourself to, and just how much kind of confidence and healing can come just from that, regardless of the sessions itself. It felt so nice, and for me especially, somebody who does not always like rest super easily, can have this kind of go mindset, having such a space focused around kind of indulgence, again, like being selfish, but like in a very nurturing type way, and being able to like put your needs first, having amazing food ready for us, all of that stuff. That did feel really good. That wasn't a session, but like that itself was a feeling and experience that I'm also bringing home of like, hey, I might have a better sense now of like when I need to kind of indulge in that way and what that can do for me. And that was fun and unique for me, and I liked it.